All right, so what we're about to see today is basically a research and compilation that I did about what is called adversarial simulation frameworks. This is a number of tools that have come out recently, and basically I'm going to go over them. I'm going to go on 4 of them that I reviewed. You'll see screenshots of it, and then maybe I can do a live demonstration of one of them. So let's go ahead and move on.
Start.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you haven't started yet?
Oh yeah, it's starting.
Okay, so let's move to the next. So most of you know who I am. We talked about this already. I'm currently a director of security research at JASP, which is a security operations center and machine learning company. So go ahead. So basically, today I'm going to talk about an introduction. I usually do these things to teach myself about new technologies. So I'm not expecting to dominate or explain these technologies from A to Z, but mostly for you to have an idea and to know what this is about and what this can be used for. So adversary simulation or emulation is basically a number of operations, a number of, or a method that describes a number of operations that can test networks, applications, networks, hosts, and defense architecture and resilience against an attacker. So basically, we have a number of tools that perform a number of systematic actions that are deemed or categorized as attacks against a sample image of your organization or even an actual live if you want. I would suggest you do that. And then it will tell you, okay, if this type of attack were to happen on your organization, this is how you would do it, right? So let's go ahead. Okay, so this frameworks, basically what they have is they have a number of attack actions or items that are taken from known exploitation, right? So you will see this in a minute. Most of these actions are already known. They're already categorized. Some of them are customizable, but basically they're known, and there's also lots of post-exploitation actions. So this results into TTP, tools, techniques, and procedures, right? Which is a very, I guess, cliche term. Once these actions are executed on sample hosts, usually sample host is known as a golden image. I will go into what a golden image is. These actions are recorded and logged for review. And you then do an assessment of what happened. So basically, I was able to create a user, right? So then that shows that maybe you need to create a policy that prevents from user creation by an attacker, for example. Or I was able to add a guest user or enable a guest user. I was able to add a new user to administrators group. You'll see that in a minute. So let's continue. So we talked about the golden image, right? The golden image is a template or for a virtual machine, virtual desktop, server, or hard disk, which is usually refers to representation of what your organization is. So, for example, a golden image can be a clone or a copy of one of your standard deployment desktop images. Any of you use this Smith, for example, or any like IT inventory type of software? Nord or Goes, for example. So every organization has like their own image, right? So some organizations, for example, they don't install Flash. Some organizations use Outlook, and it's already configured. You open your laptop, you log in, and now the Outlook is already there. Microsoft Office is already there. Silence is already there. Your antivirus is already there. So that's one of that.
That's a version of Java for your accounting system.
Exactly. There you go. So that's what you want. That's precisely what you want. What you want is you want a representation of what you have in your organization, either being a desktop, or either being a server, or either being an application, to test these things. By me telling you this, you already probably can figure out that this is not just for the small organizations. Most of these frameworks are based on Active Directory domains, so you have to have an Active Directory domain network, and a lot of the actions are quite sophisticated. So this is not your down the street hacker, squid kitty, or phishing. This test, I would say, post-exploitation actions that have been taken and researched from known advanced actors. So go ahead. So here's the some of the benefits of the adversarial simulation frameworks. One, they will measure your response capacity. They'll allow you to create or assess a risk level. They test your attack surface. They allow you to measure your detection telemetry. They allow you to test your incident response. If this type of attack or this type of adversary performs this specific attack, how will we respond? How long will it take to respond? Do we have the means to respond to this? Right? Exactly. Do we have a playbook? Do we have a team? What are the actions if this were to happen? And of course, validate defense rules. Do we have the security controls in place? The GPOs that will prevent me from adding a new user and being an administrator? Do I have a segmentation of my networks? Is there any response if one of my computers was compromised? So go ahead. Most of these frameworks, they follow the attack framework, which is what's created by MITRE. An attack is adversarial tactics, techniques, common knowledge. So basically what they do is they have like a matrix of type of attacks, and every type of attack has an action, right? So some of these actions are defined operationally by commands. So for example, user add is a way to add a new user, right? Who am I? We'll tell you what's the current users, right? So these things can be translated into footprinting, information disclosure, being able to escalate privileges. For example, run as any type of user.
And this framework is really taking off. It's already in this. You can see how it's
Oh,
all.
it is?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll be able to show it. Oh, great. So after this, we'll have a missed presentation, and then we'll be able to show it how this attack framework, which was created by MITRE. If you don't know who MITRE is, MITRE created the CVE framework, right? So
Like a standards think tank.
they are. They're part of the government. Yeah, they're a security think tank, and they're trying to create a number of standards. So here's an example of what the MITRE attack framework covers. So here's the tactics. Right? For example, you have things like execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense escalation, credential access, discovery, lateral movement, collection, exfiltration, command and control. You have techniques that apply to Windows, Linux, Mac. So if you go deeper into this, you will see the operation that basically matches the type of technique, matches the type of tactic. So they also have in some of these frameworks what is called adversarial simulation plans. So here's an example of AP3. AP3 is a known malicious professional criminal group, and here's usually how they behave. They set up a C2, software package, obfuscate files, eventually get the initial access. Once they compromise the host, they discover, evade defense, escalate privileges, access credentials, move laterally, or continue further execution. Then on phase 3, they will collect data, which basically means they will exfiltrate, compress, and stage. And compress and stage, I'm assuming, is if you have a very large data that you want to exfiltrate, so you're going to have to figure out how to get it out without triggering some alarms, because the pipe will get very large. Right. Or base 64 encoded. Right. But this, as defenders, right, should tell you that if I see very large numbers of data going out in the fight, they should raise some questions like, what's going on? Or what are we doing here, right? Even if it's on TLS, you may not be able to see it, but you can see the size of the fight, though, and you can see patterns on encrypted communication. That may tell you, hey, something might be going on here. All right. So let's make this clear, because these are new technologies. There's a lot of new stuff that's referring to that. They do not replace pen testers. They don't. Pen testers is not replaced by this. And they don't replace vulnerability assessments. They do test for vulnerabilities, however, they do not replace a comprehensive assessment. Remember, if you go back, right, most of these actions are already written, pre-programmed, and defined operationally, right? What a pen tester or vulnerability assessment person can do based on the knowledge of the ongoing test might differ from this and might even be more comprehensive than just repeating a number of actions that apply to a campaign on a specific host on a specific target. So that's something you have to consider. Let's move again. So some of these attacks are way sophisticated for an average company, meaning, like I said before, if you get bombed by some script kiddie, he's not likely to do this. Most of the simulations are based on Windows attacks. There are some clients for other operating systems, but they're not as specific and comprehensive as what we're about to see. The scripted actions represent specific adversaries, a specific tactic, tools, and procedures. So I will consider the TTPs specific sample behaviors. This is not the universe. You're just saying, right? If it's almost like an antivirus. An antivirus has a static signature, right? So when I have WannaCry, there's in specific registries, there's in specific actions that I'm taking. So I'm just testing myself against, for example, WannaCry. That doesn't tell me that defends me from every single ransomware string. And that's how this should be considered. Okay, I know some of the techniques of AP3. I don't even think AP3 will repeat the techniques all the time. We're just getting samples of them and saying, okay, should they come with their most known behaviors, how will we react? These behaviors, again, AP3 is unlikely to attack John Doe's little company. These actions can be customized for different scenarios and company policies. Uber Meta, which we're going to see today, allows you to create your own actions. So that's pretty cool. And then without a golden image, the results of these frameworks are not used. I mean, if you go and just throw in a VM and you don't customize it to look like your company, then you're lying to yourself. Whatever you're going to get from this is not applicable. So the idea is to apply it to the real deal for you to know, okay, it looks like if we were attacked by such, we probably will be compromised, right?
I think you're going to get this right. Can you set up like a domain controller too? So
You're about to see that. I'll show you how I did it.
Yeah.
So, they don't prevent 0 days. Again, we're going back to, this is almost like an antivirus, right? I keep going back to the idea of the antivirus where you already have a regex, a pre-registered rules that says if you match it, okay, I'll see you. But 0 days is usually not that. So it might give you a measure or response, but this will not prevent a 0 day. Useful for IR training. So basically it's like a fire drill, right? And so are red teams. Red teaming also is a fire drill, right? Depends on what you tell your organization, if you inform them that you're doing a red team or not. Valuable component of offensive driving defense posture, meaning offense must drive defense. It's better to try this type of things than just wait until you get compromised. Right? You should never do that. You should always be aware of what your adversaries may do and the type of attacks that you may not even know. You may not even be even have the capable people or tools to detect it. And that's one of the valuable things about this. Because I can tell you, a lot of the actions that we're about to see, if there are certain places, if you don't have endpoint or a GPO or a Windows GPO, you will never see this. They'll basically will go all over the place, you will never find out. Why? Because you're not even logging it. Certain scenarios of adversarial simulation might be safer than penetration testing techniques or attacks that are potentially disrupted or destructive. This is an important point. There might be situations or scenarios where by you doing adversarial simulation, you don't have to be hitting a legacy host that is fragile, a mainframe that has an old TCP/IP stack, and that will go down if you start sending synapse, right? Or a LAN attack, right? So there's a value of this. There's a value of having, for example, old Windows 98 or Windows XP.
I'll go down because.
Right, exactly. So this will allow you to test situations where it's definitely too difficult to try this in production. Provides a specific targeted exercise. This can be used to simulate specific cases against most valuable and defended assets. When I was in HackMiami, we used to have an adversarial resilience unit. And what that adversarial resilience unit did was to come up with ways that our adversaries would try to compromise us. And I thought that was valuable. So this is a tool to follow that model. Understand where they may come in, what are our weaknesses, how will we react, can we even measure this? Do we have personnel that understands how to do this? What are the procedures if there is an incident? Do we have a ticketing system? Do we have a rule of decision? How will we react to this? Visibility, there you go. And then there's a chain of command. Because I remember I've been into places where, yeah, we found out what this was, but okay, who calls who? What happens now? Do we block it? Well, in order to block it, you need a ticket. Oh, once you send the ticket, then the guy kicks it back and says, you're not a manager, I can't approve it. You know, there's so many variables that can happen during an incident that you have to be aware of, and you need to be ready to get it done. So let's move into the adversarial simulation tools. The one that I'm going to start with is Caldera. Caldera was basically created by MITRE, and it's based on MITRE, right? So it follows a set of systems and rules and behaviors that we can execute either by installing agents at a computer or what they call a RAT, a remote administration tool. And it will try to emulate how the attackers will act on this machine. So now I'm going to show you screenshots. So this is how the matrix coverage looks like. I installed this framework. It's not difficult. You can install it on Ubuntu 18. It takes Python 3. By the way, it's a little tricky because you need to set up a domain. Most of these things will act on Windows machines that are on a domain. If you just put a simple workstation, a lot of the desks are going to tell you, this is not in a domain, I can't do anything. So there's no value in that. Right? Can you talk about a host call You could, and you could try to do that. But you can download and just so you know guys, the Windows 10 creators version, you can download it for free, and so can you download a Windows 2016 server. Right, you can download the Windows 2016 server, and you can download the Windows 2016 server and set up a quick domain, and then you need to install this, and this will have like a executables. Let's move on. Oh, actually, wait. Go back for a minute. You see this? How we're on Windows, right? You see all the techniques, how they're listed, like command and control, for example, commonly used ports, connection proxy. We have things such as collection. We have obtain system, creating new processes. So you see how this is measured in terms of matching attacking actions to categories that are then, I guess, show you a category of a stage of attack, usually a kill chain. You guys know what a kill chain is, the Loki market kill chain? A lot of it has to do with this. And then it will show you at what stage of the attack The action was performed, and then you can evaluate, okay, were we able to prevent this, or did it happen? So what do we need to do in order to be prepared for this? So let's go over, and this is the funny part. I actually installed what is called an agent. The agent, Caldera comes with two executables, an agent and a wrap. So usually you start the agent, you download the configuration file, and then it sets all the information, and you can see it here, to the C2. This is like SUSE. Have you guys ever set up SUSE? Okay. Well, SUSE is better than this, but yes. I like SUSE better than this. It's basically the same. It's a button. It's pretty much like a button. So basically, the difference is that SUSE obviously is malicious, but it's an amazing tool. Here, we're logging everything. So right now, I'm emulating Lazarus Group, which is the North Korean criminal or professional criminal group, or APT3, known as APT3, and this tells me, okay, you are trying to emulate what these guys would do. So here's my target, and here's all the actions. And the green says, yes, I was able to do it. See that? So now, I have the details, right? I have the logs, I have a bunch of stuff. I can go and review with my IR. Okay, wait a minute, I was able to, I can't read this very well, but I was able to enable guest. Okay, we need to go to our Windows security policies and see why I was able to enable guest. You understand where I'm coming? I was able to execute, for example, create a new process without being an administrator. Why did this happen? You see now why the golden image is so important? Because if I just put a plain Jane image there, it was going to do everything. It does not represent your organization. Some caveats. In Windows 10, the agent will be detected as malicious by Windows Defender, so you may have to whitelist it. Okay, let's move on. So here's this is just like SUSE. SUSE used to have this, or it still has it, where you select the agent, it's in a shell command. So I did host name, and then it shows me, right? It's a botnet. That's pretty much it is. It's like a botnet simulator where a number of actions that then I can log in and say, okay, this is what will happen if the following attacks had been performed. So there is a number of attacks that are in operations, and then you can run them, and then you get your logs, and you see how your organization did. Most of these are post-exploitation, right? We already have the agent, so we're not exploiting it yet. You understand what I'm saying? So it's presuming you have been compromised, right? In this case, we're assuming that we've been compromised. It's not like a pen test that I will go and I had to get my way in. In this case, most of this stuff is post-exploitation. Right, you got this, right. Which, in my opinion, is a healthy assumption. Everybody will get compromised at one point.
70% success rate is a healthy assumption.
Right.
It's not an assumption, actually. There's a statistic.
Right, there's a statistic that shows that you were likely to be compromised, 70%. So let's move it on. Okay, so here's my next tool that I chose. There are many. There's Endgame has one. There's a Red Team something. Most of them are based on attack. So I picked two that were based on attack. One is Uberdata, and the other one was Caldera, which obviously is the original. And then I chose the APT simulator. The APT simulator is actually a batch script. This is the simple of all of them, because you don't need to set up a C2, you don't need to set up an agent. It's simply a batch script that runs in every Windows computer, and it's trying to address this. So basically, it uses a bunch of tools that then produces a dump file, and then in the dump file is your log file that you can review. So this is what they claim they're trying to see. We have APT, we have malware. So they're trying to see things such as rats, keylogger, exploit, rootkits, spear phishing, port scanning, web shells. So now I'll show you how it looks like. Here, right, is a matrix of what the APT simulator is trying to measure and will address. So we have antivirus, network intrusion detection system, EDR, endpoint detection, security monitoring, compromise assessment. So here's the matrix of that batch file is going to cover. And then this is how it looks like. So you basically go into the image and run the batch file. And then it starts doing all these actions. You see this? So here, for example, you can see here that it says activating user guest account. The command completed successfully.
And you're logging as a standard user form? No, someone else.
This one was admin. This was admin. Yeah, right. So you can do this just like a web app pen test. You usually need a lower credits and a higher credits, right? So we try this with administrator. We can try this with a user and see where it goes, right? Then we'll have to test, before we go to this, we have to test privilege escalation, right? So here's an idea of what would happen. So for example, using certain util to drop cat2 storage shellcode launcher injecting byte shell on port 1234 into run DLL32.
So what, the base 64 encoding now?
Yeah, so just download it and see if it works. I stopped it there because most of these are host only. I try to contain any damage that may happen in my lab. So I cut it off there, but this will give you a good idea what it does. You don't need to set up your own infrastructure, meaning you don't need to set up, it took me an hour or two to set up the domain. It's host only, you have to deal with the DNS, and then you have to set up the Caldera, and then you have to make sure it connects. There are issues with the dependencies on Ubuntu. Ubuntu 18 is new, so there is a number of things that you have to consider. But this is, I like this one because this is the simplest of all of them. Keep going. And then we have OverMeta. OverMeta is an adversarial simulation tool that was created by Vuex. You guys know who Vuex is, and Chris Gates, which is his name is Carnal Onich, I think. Yeah.
Carnal Onich.
Yeah, Carnal Onich. Oh, Carnal Punich.
No, it's Onich.
It's Onich.
Oh, Cyril?
Yeah, Carnal Onich.
One or the other.
So these two guys are pretty amazing, and they work for Uber. And they created this tool called Meta. Meta is pretty cool and emulates in certain way what Caldera does. But I think Uber Meta is more customizable because they give you the scripts so you can change the actions. They actually let you know how to create your own operations. So they have, for example, examples of adversarial simulations, and basically you run whatever is available. You can create your own, right? And then it will run it for you. Right? It's not as simple as I'm saying it. You know, every action you're gonna have to put, okay, the command syntax is blah 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 blah, execute. Okay, so Meta is not easy to set up. It needs Redis, it needs Vagrant. If you guys are not aware with Vagrant, you have to set up Vagrant. So I had to learn Vagrant before I set this up. I tried to run Vagrant inside a VM, it doesn't work. So I had to run it natively on my MacBooks, which means it's taking a lot of space from my hard drive. Right? So this is a caveat for you. A lot of the latest, I guess, exploitation POCs are either being done on Docker or either being done on Vagrant. So we all need to learn this. It looks like we're shifting away from VMs. I'm starting to feel, oh, using VMware. Because basically you do Vagrant out, you put a link and a bunch of stuff happens and that's it. You got the server. I just did actually a threat advisory about compromise of Redis servers, which you probably will see it next week. And basically you just type a number of commands and you set up a Redis server right there without I didn't need to download the ISO, I didn't need to run it, upgrade it, and start Redis. I just typed a bunch of commands, deploy it. And I use that on my Lemur, by the way. Lemur is a great machine. I totally recommend it. It cost me less than the MacBook Pro, and I have it with SSDs and with 32 gigs of RAM, and it kicks ass. And it's System 76. Huh? and they find us. Right? They find us. So I would definitely, I wasn't a skeptic for System 76 and not anymore. They really improved me. And they will do pretty good. I haven't had any issues, hiccups, or anything. So here there are several conditions you have to. Vagrant creates the VM. Redis gets the logs, and then I think I'm missing one more component, which I think is Celery. Celery executes the action. So this is how it looks like.
You know what else uses Vagrant? Metasploit. To build a new
Oh,
server.
really?
To build a vulnerable server.
Oh, okay.
It uses Vagrant.
Oh, cool.
I was
Yeah,
looking at that.
you can create a VM and then create a Vagrant image and upload it, and it will download. There's a number of things that you need to do.
There's
But
lots of uses.
oh yeah, I actually have thought about creating a Vagrant Chiron, but not sure if it will make sense at this point. But here's as you can see, we'll go back to what we were doing. Same thing. Look. See, cmd.exe cnet user domain, right? It's the same thing. Adversarial actions that have been reported, have been seen, being replicated into a golden image because I didn't have a domain in Vagrant. It found out that it was workgroup. So it gives me an error. It says I can't do this. You understand now? Okay. So I guess this will need more customization in order for me to get my value out of it. But again, it depends on what your DevOps is, I guess. What is it that you use? You use Vagrant? You use Docker? Do you use VMware like I do? I created my domain in VMware. Right? I guess I'm sure you can do it on Docker or Vagrant. But definitely, I would suggest you guys to get acquainted because most of the sharing of the exploits and stuff nowadays is being done either by Docker or Vagrant. I'm not sure if you just, this is sort of a tangent, but it was discovered that a bunch of Docker images had actually cryptocurrency mining.
Made like 90 grand off it.
Yeah, exactly. They made a lot of money of it, so that's the problem because you go into these repositories on the web, somebody put that there. I can make a Vagrant image and put, I don't know, Monero. Put my Monero mining and, you know, I can put like a Windows 2016. I'm sure a lot of people will download it and then just sit down and until they find me. But that's what these people did. So that can happen. So that's the Uber Meta. It takes time to set up most of these tools. To be honest, take time. It took me a good week and a half to. Meta was specifically a little difficult because there's a lot of dependencies and things that you need to do in order to make it run. Caldera was a little more straightforward, but you need to create your domain, right? Which is, I think, the right way to go. Because if you're going to measure, if you're really going to give value to any of this, you might as well take the time to replicate your organization's golden images, either being domain, either being workstation, and then apply this to it. You can also try to apply this to a production, right? Instead of me doing that with the agent, I just install the agent on a true machine on my network and go for it.
Some big companies have labs that are pretty much
Exactly.
same as production.
Exactly, which is the way it should be. It should be like that. So, do you understand now where this is going? At least you have an idea what adversarial simulation tools, right? I believe between these two, between the Ubermeta Caldera and the APT simulator, you get a good idea of some attacks that have quite a bit of coverage. They'll give you an idea of what will happen or what they would do should you be compromised. So let's move on.
If you had a VM, you could really just snapshot your productions and test.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can do that. You just have to set up the tools, right? And the tools sometimes require certain dependencies at the host in order to run. So here's another. I took this from CSO magazine. Here's other tools that I did not cover. Most of them because they're based on MITRE as well. So I try over Meta because I know Muvix and I know Chris Gates and I know they're awesome. So I said I need to see what they're doing. If they're doing it, it's because of a reason. and Caldera because it's from Micro. So I said, if both of them are based on attack, then I'm covered on attack. These other tools are as well based on attack, so I didn't cover them. Some of them require quite a bit of setup. You have to download it. Some of them are free. There's also an operating system called Red OS, Red Hunt OS that has all this, which by the way I use, and it didn't work. So I was forced to do it by hand each one. Because my first thought was that awesome, I just download this, run these things, and that's it, my work is done. But I found out that the hard way that these things were not working. And because they were not working, then I had to create environments for every single tool. So here's another one that are well known, Red Canary, Atomic Red, Endgame, Red Automation. And there is actually a company that presented a HackMiami called Verodin, or Verodin. Yeah, Verodin, I think they do something similar to this. So here it tells you what the coverage is. And it gives you some of the example of what you're going to test.
Security instrumentation.
The what?
They call it security instrumentation. So I know the CEO.
Oh, is that how they call it? Okay,
Whenever
cool.
I'm in DC, I go out there.
Oh, really? Cool, cool. So, so here's another open source, right? So let's move on, and I think this is it for me. So, as far as conclusions go, okay, it's important for you to know the tools don't replace pen tests. So having a good sysadmin that can set this up doesn't replace the pen tester or your security department. Because I'm sure that's the first thing they're going to say. We can run this and that's it. Just fire the security analyst.
It's the anxiety of a live pen test, though. That's not
The one?
It replaces the anxiety of a live pen
A
test.
little bit, right? Because it's simulated.
You do it at your
Right, right. No, that's actually true. And they don't replace bug hunting services either, right? I don't think these two. What has happened, unfortunately, is that this has lowered the value of this. It's unfortunate. But I don't think they replace them. I don't think they do. I'm going to be honest. I think it's just another tool. But unfortunately, the market has shifted into the bug hunting because many aspiring pen testers have gone into these services. But in my opinion, companies are short. They're cutting short great talent, and they're not paying what they should pay. The tools partially depict sophisticated adversary actions. I think I want to be clear with this. This does not represent the entirety of the universe of all the attack actions that may happen in any situation. You want to make sure, like I said, you have signatures for WannaCry. You might be protected to that strain of WannaCry. If they repack it or do something else, you might not. Same thing with this. It's scripted, known actions that are repetitive, right? So you will know how to react to these actions, and you may extrapolate or transfer. It's called learning, right? Should you have a similar attack, but this doesn't mean you're covered against everything. They don't replace a red team. I don't think any tool at this point replaces humans. Humans against humans is usually the best model to go. Great for blue team training. There's a lot of customizations and caveats. It's heavily relying on Windows AD because, of course, most of our enterprises are based on Windows AD. And sometimes not much of a value if you don't create an organization's golden image. So I wouldn't, that's like, I don't know, like sampling the wrong patient, right? You're not really getting anywhere. And sometimes there's a questionable accuracy because you need to disable, and a lot of times, EDR or AV. So if you disable that, how realistic this is, right? However, these are technologies that are in early stage, and they have some promising value as we apply and customize them. I believe that this might turn to something else. This might turn
I always
into
felt that golden image was neglected and not updated enough in the organizations I work. So
Right.
this might help.
That would be awesome for SecOps, absolutely.
It's
SecOps.
usually patched after the fact, right?
The what?
Well, yeah, you patch live, but I mean, like, they should update it too, though.
configured, we both on SCCM administration. A lot of times your golden image is super outdated.
Yeah.
And then you pile on all your updates, and you pile on all your packages. And by the time it finally gets out of production, hopefully it's.
There's a 2-hour wait when I got a new laptop one time, he said update all the stuff.
Yeah, so. Because of golden image, I guess you have to first do your regular deployment, and then that will be your.
Right.
I think the issues are less around patching and more around the configuration items, such as was I able to enable guest account as administrator? Like, it really boils down to different items that harden. So like with patching, and then there's all these hardening things that we should do in our images. And that gets to my question of with this, when it comes out with the result of this was wrong, does it tell you what you're supposed to do to fix it?
No,
Just tell you,
no,
hey,
it tells you this was able to be done. So then you have to sort of research. It's not like a vulnerability assessment, like I said before, that will say, hey, you have CVE this, here's the patch. I'm thinking that maybe VAs will this will be the natural path for some of these tools.
It feels to me like this type of tool would be not a lot more useful, but would be a lot easier to implement if it came with like a hardening guide. These are the things that we're testing for. This is
GPO,
yeah.
That's why I pay the security engineer.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you know what? It would be awesome if like a vulnerability assessment tool had the agents or had the bash scripts and say, hey, I found all this. Here's all the patches. Here's the guide for the GPO, which they do that already, but not at the specific level of this action. This is almost like an attack simulation.
A lot of security is brought down with GPO, from Active Directory, so that's the thing in your golden image environment, you need to make sure you also replicate all the GPO objects.
Right.
Yeah, or enable this log ID or enable logging of this.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
I'd also like to point out the interesting thing is with a lot of these places, Microsoft is trying to push people away from golden image. One of the things that Microsoft is very hot and biscuit about right now is it's a technology that Apple has where you get the computer, you ship it directly to the employee, and then at the very first sign-on screen, they put their corporate email address in. Yeah, and then it simplifies it, it connects up to your AD, and then it starts deploying things down after the fact. So Microsoft is heavily trying to push corporations to move to you don't image it, you use stock Windows 10, and you sign in with your Azure AD account, and things start coming down, which is going to make life a lot more difficult.
Why?
Because it'll allow corporations to have a wider variety of systems. It gives the flexibility for a corporation to say, go to the store, buy a computer, sign in, and then we'll start to corporatize it.
Right.
Is that called Jamf or something?
Well, so Jamf, so on the Mac side, Apple has something called Device Enrollment Program. And so Microsoft's answer is this, the Device Enrollment Program, which I guess my point is that kind of how VMs are moving more towards microservices.
Right.
Computers, desktops that we're working with are going to move more towards the BYOD model where it's more difficult to figure out what's wrong in your environment.
Right. Which is what's happening right now. Right.
Yeah, but you might have a more applicable device.
Well, the thing is, when you do, you go through Microsoft's gateway, so it reduces your attack vector that you do. So let's say if it has Microsoft's Azure gateway, then they have to get onto the private, like AWS or other servers and stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't want to sidetrack that, but this is pretty cool.
You liked it?
I did.
This is pretty new. And it's making the rounds in Silicon Valley. So that's why every time I hear something like that, I jump on this. You never know, Hey, and this blockchain is BTC, so. By the way, the Bitcoin is pretty bad, by the way, I heard. Keep going down, yeah. Any other questions?
Well, I heard Bitcoin was manipulated.
Maybe what?
I heard Bitcoin was manipulated back in like November. That's why it shot up.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well, we're going to have to look into that. But as far as this, any questions? Well, I am going to post this on the Slack channel, and then you can play with it. If not, any other questions, then you can always email me and find me there. And thank you. Thank you very much.